Before the Jews enter the Promised Land, Moshe, reminds them of their obligation to take various tithes, certain percentages of their produce from their agricultural crops. Some of them are easy to understand. They have to take a percentage and give it to the Kohanim and the Leviim, the priests and the Levites who don't have agricultural land of their own. In certain years, they have to give a percentage to the poor, that's Meiser Ani, because the poor need to be supported. But there's another tithe that's difficult to understand. In certain years, they have to take 10% of their produce, separate it, bring it to Jerusalem, and eat it there. And if there's too much produce to bring to Jerusalem, they can sell it, take the money, bring that to Jerusalem, and spend it there. What's the reason for that tithe? I can assure you that God did not legislate that law of Meiser Sheni because he was getting a kickback from the Jerusalem Hotel Association. So what's going on? Moshe tells us that the reason for that law is so that you will learn to fear your God. How did that work? Think about it. Back in the day, Jerusalem was the hub, the engine of spiritual activity for the Jewish people. The temple stood. If someone would go there, observing the dictates of Meiser Sheni, bring their produce or the money that they had received from selling their produce and eat it in Jerusalem or spend it there, they'd be able to go to the temple, see the Kohanim and Leviim performing their services. They'd be able to see the Sanhedrin, the judges of the high court, deliberating and deciding cases. They could see people walking down the street on lofty spiritual levels. And it couldn't help but have a positive effect on their Yiras Shamayim, their fear of heaven. And what I love about that explanation is that it's true again nowadays. I enjoy going back to visit Philadelphia, where I grew up, my hometown. And I like my commute in and out of Manhattan most days. And I love the view from my office. But there's nothing that compares to getting off a plane at TLV, Tel Aviv, Ben Gurion Airport, jumping in a cab and heading to the holiest city in the holiest country in the world, and arriving in Jerusalem. You can't help but get a spiritual boost. When I was a kid, I used to read comic books, and when Green Lantern's ring would run low, he had to recharge it. So he'd stand in front of a green lantern, and he would say, "In brightest day and blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light." And his ring would recharge. That's how I feel when I get to Jerusalem, to Yerushalayim. Like I'm plugging myself into a charging station, like you plug in your phone. Just from walking down the street, going shopping in Mea Shearim, when the store proprietor or employee will stop what he's doing, studying the Talmud, put his finger on the place, hold the place while conducting the transaction with you, and after giving you your change and waving goodbye, resume his study from where he left off. Going to the Kotel, our last remnant of the temple complex, and watching people pray, but not just pray, talk to God one-on-one, like God is right there in front of them, and it's so clear that they're having a conversation with their Father in heaven. It's unbelievably inspiring. So whether you've got some extra airline miles lying around, or whether Dan can find a deal for you, however you can do it, get over there. Not just to Israel, but to Yerushalayim, to Jerusalem, to our holiest city. It's still as inspiring now as it was back then.